This is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, we actually find out a bit more about Yuma Isogai and how he wound up being in, basically how he wound up being in E-Class, and also we find a little bit more about his leadership skills and why he was chosen to be class rep. So it starts off with Nagisa and his friends all hanging out in a cafe where Isogai works, and as it turns out, and I'll get to this in a minute, Isogai. Well, I'll get to why he works in a minute, but but they go there to observe Isogai while he's working, and quickly remark that Isogai is basically a prince among men. He's way too elegant and classy, and other than the fact that he's dirt poor, instead buying a bunch of things off of the bargain rack. And this was alluded earlier during the summer festival episode where it's revealed that he caught a bunch of fish at one of the carnival games to eat for food. Other than that, he's basically a prince among men, and also during this little conversation, the guys and even Meg Kataoka, who is there, they remark that it is a bit of a double standard, because when Isogai does something, it's considered cute and endearing, and when other people do it, it's considered either gross and weird. In Okajima's case, kind of sad and lonely in Nagisa's case, or in Meg's case, considered scandalous because because one of the things that Isogai gets is notices from girls from the main campus, and basically Meg gets them too, which implies that some of the girls are homosexual and want to and like Meg in that way. So it's a little bit amusing, but and then Core Sensei, who they openly remark just kind of shows up. He openly remarks that it's only really cool when a cool person actually does them, and even remarks on the double standards with it. But as they're discussing Isogai and also about how he's kind of a prince among men, Gakashu Asano and his cronies from the Big Five walk in, and as it turns out, the reason Isogai is in Class 3 at all is because apparently the school has a very strict policy against part-time jobs. Apparently, students aren't allowed to work part-time while they're students. And a case in point, this is Isogai's second strike. So naturally, Isogai begs Gakashu not to report it to his father and keep the information secret, pointing out that it'd only be till the end of the month and that he needs the money. So at which point Gakashu remarks that he won't tell his father if Isogai and the guys from Class 3E are able to beat him in a pole tipping competition. And at the school sports festival, I should mention. And Isogai then mentions this to the rest of the class who wasn't there, and the rest of the guys, and they all assemble together to kind of formulate an attack strategy, despite the fact that Isogai kind of openly remarks that he doesn't really need their help and that he's fine being expelled if he has to, which they ultimately remarked is a really bad idea, and that he should have at the very least fight for his chance. So they begin assembling and talking battle strategies, and of course, as he decides to coach them in their ideals, and pointing him out that he considers himself a prince among men as well, which is kind of in air quotes, I should mention, because he's not, but he has a very high opinion of himself, so we'll go with it. But in any case, he goes in and decides to coach them, and Karasuma even remarks that he did some pole tipping competitions in his day back at the academy as well. But also remarks that it is a very intense training, kind of like a war scenario, and that the size of your team ultimately will help depend on your victory. So he remarks that while he may be able to rally people into a position where they can actually win, Isogai is kind of screwed in terms of raw numbers, because his group is only consisted of 12 students, Gakashu's own team, which is significantly bigger because there's a lot more. It's a lot bigger guy to girl ratio in the A class than it is in E class. So you remember. But sure enough, they, after talking over some battle strategies, the next day they go to the sports festival, and Class E is kind of dominating. I should mention Class E is Hana is she quickly devours the bread eating competition, quickly devouring the bread in one gulp and winning the race that way. And also it's shown that Kaede is really good at doing the whole crawling under that thing, and a whole bunch of other students are just excelling at their relative sports, and Koro Sensei even chalks this up in the midst snapping pictures of his students because he's very proud of them. He treats them like a proud parent, and that's listed as one of his weaknesses in this episode, ironically enough. But as he's snapping pictures of all of his students excelling at what they do best, pointing out that the assassination work has actually helped them in somewhat, he remarks that the school festival sports festival is a great way to show off all of their skills that you've learned and how to actually, basically use them to your advantage to actually win at competitions. And even gives Isegai a much needed pep talk, pointing out that he can learn a thing or two from all this. But then he notices that Isegai has a bit of a weird look on his face and asks him what's wrong. And Isegai very much tells Koro Sensei straight out he doesn't think that he'll be able to measure up to Gakashu, mainly because he feels like Gakashu is a much more competent leader than he is. And Koro Sensei merely remarks that he couldn't be any more wrong, pointing out that it's ultimately his own confidence in his people and his friends that he's able to actually be a more effective leader, and also remarks that he would much rather have Isegai as a student than Gakashu, pointing out that Gakashu just kind of knows how to lead but isn't very good at commanding his forces very well. He's very much like his father, so he's good at teaching people, but he's not so good at leading. So, and for that reason, realizes that Isegai is most likely going to excel. And with that, the groups then proceed to get ready. So, and then as it turns out, Gakashu is also a little bit scared of the fact that he might lose, because he called in all four of the foreign exchange students, and they're all very beefy, burly guys. So Isegai quickly realizes that Gakashu might be cheating a little bit, since he kind of brought in a bunch of students that very clearly don't very much look like students. I should mention, they don't look like students, but they are. Isegai remarks that he feels like he's a little bit at a disadvantage, but they proceed to go with their own effective strategies. Gakashu basically forms a defensive barrier around his pole, while forming four attack teams, each led by each of the different foreign exchange students. Whereas Isegai and Class E kind of just form a defensive strategy based around Koro Sensei's absolute defense form. Basically, put all hands on deck and going in all out on defense to keep the pole safe. And in any case, which Gakashu remarks isn't a very sound strategy if he's only going to be going on defense. And then proceeds to send in his first attack team, led by an American exchange student, which I should mention, Karma mocks consistently mocking his episode and talking with a cowboy accent throughout the episode, at least in the dub. But he openly mocks the way he talks throughout, and is very clearly derisive of him, trying to poke fun at him and rile him up. But in any case, the first attack squad moves in, and Yoshida and Masamushi actually realize that they would rather go out swinging than actually get themselves hammered, and then proceed to go fight the big burly guy, which works about as well as you expect, and they go flying into the bleachers. At which point the attack team then proceeds to move its focus onto Isegai and the pole, only for Isegai to actually execute on another technique very similar, reminiscent of Koro Sensei, which is to bait the attacking team into getting close enough to the pole that they can actually pin them down with the pole, which is actually kind of impressive. So, and sure enough, as Karma and Terasuka point out, there's no real rules against using the pole as a weapon, so it's basically fair game, but they are able to pin the attack team down with it. So, at which point the rest of the team decides to move in on the offensive and try to actually attack them by going through the 2 attacking teams that Gakashu is now sending out to try and capture the pole. At which point Isogai has the rest of the guys who are available to go thread through them, only to get completely surrounded. But this is and Karasuma even remarks whether or not they should intervene. But Kura-sensei openly remarks to Karasuma that he actually gave Isogai a bit of a strategy and a bit of a pep talk during social studies, pointing out that the best leaders often use unconventional strategies to win the day and actually succeed. And that he could learn a thing or two from some of history's greatest heroes and leaders. Case in point, Isogai decides to employ an unconventional strategy of his own, which is to basically have all the guys just run straight into the bleachers and sidelines and draw the competition in that way. With Gakashu quickly realizing what's going on and quickly realizing that he's trying to make it uneven, and then gives orders to focus on the 3 best climbers. And sure enough, they do. The group does exactly that, sending in out as many of his followers as he can to just kind of delay them. Unfortunately, this winds up being Gakashu's downfall, as it turns out Yasuno and Masamushi haven't actually been knocked out. They were just pretending. They got knocked into the bleachers, hid behind the bleachers, and then rush in to grab Gakashu while he was distracted. At which point the rest of the guys join in and go on an all-out offensive. Pointing out that which enables them to actually close in on Gakashu and keep him pinned. But Gakashu isn't down for the count yet, pointing out that he can still defend himself and that he's still more than capable of actually keeping the pole upright until the competition is over. At which point he kicks Isogai free. But Isogai actually uses that to his advantage, getting into a slumped down position so that one of the other guys can actually use him as a launch pad and grab Gakashu that way. So, and with that, they quickly realize that everybody has, except for 2 guys, namely Terasuga and Koyabayashi, everybody is now full offense on Gakashu's side of the field. And when they're a little bit confused about what exactly is going on, Koyabayashi lies and said it's physics and they're using leverage to keep all of them down. But in actuality, he quickly reveals with his analytical skills. As it turns out, Gakashu is a bit too busy to give orders, so they don't really have a way to actually defend against him because he actually can't issue any orders. And the guys under the pole know this, remarking that, even shouting to Gakashu that they need orders. But Gakashu openly remarks that at least to himself, that he can't actually give orders because he's too busy with the other students. At which point, Isogai decides to finish off the competition once and for all with his own final secret weapon. And then he uses Itona. So basically what he does is he lifts Itona into the air, launches him into the air, and then Itona kicks the pole down to the ground, and they win the competition that way. In Class 3E, basically wins the competition, and then Isogai continues to receive kudos for the rest of the day because, well, as we've established, he's a prince among men, and the girls, regardless of his own social status, actually like him. And people begin to remark, and some of the guys even begin to remark whether or not the mood around is changing, since he feels like they're not discriminating against them as heavily as they used to. And the other guys merely remark that it's because they've taken down Gakashu twice now, and the mood is kind of shifting in the school because now they're able to actually showcase that Class 3E, while kind of a bit of a group of screw-ups, is still more than capable as students and are more than capable of actually learning as individuals. At which point Gakashu and the 4 exchange students go to meet with Gakuho, and Gakuho is very openly about the remark that Gakashu didn't have enough of the information to actually win, and points out that Isogai used that to his advantage to basically defeat Gakashu's own strategy. At which point one of the American exchange student openly remarks that Gakashu tried his best and that Gakuho should at least try to give him a bit of a lead as to how to actually succeed, pointing out that failure is a good part of success and that he should commend him to work better. At which point Gakuho decides, you know what, I am going to give him an example, and then proceeds to beat the shit out of all four of the exchange students after challenging them to a fight. At which point he reveals a bit of backstory regarding himself, that he defeated a black belt on his 3rd day of class. He tried out for martial arts. He got his ass handed to him the 1st day by his instructor, studied him the 2nd day, and then the 3rd day was able to beat his instructor before his instructor was able to put up a fight. And then uses that as a lesson, pointing out that it's all about observing people and how they work, and how to actually defeat them. At which point Gakashu immediately remarks to himself that his father's a monster. But in any case, shortly after this meeting, he actually does wind up holding his end of the bargain with Isogai and the rest of Class 3E, pointing out that his secret is safe for now, but that someday in the future he will win, and he won't just try to simply defeat him. At which point the rest of the students merely begin to celebrate, remarking that Gakashu's a little of a sore loser, and some of the guys even tell Isogai not to take it so personally, but Isogai merely remarks that he doesn't really know that while Gakashu doesn't really know Isogai all that well. The reverse is also true. Isogai kind of doesn't know what kind of life Gakashu leads, and that as far as he knows, Gakashu has a bit of a hard life. But that if it means that he landed in Class 3E and made a whole bunch of good friends, that he's happy about the life he wound up having, and hopes that Gakashu will one day be able to have what he has. And then that's where the episode ends. So yeah, this episode just overall showcases Isogai's skill as a leader, which is a big part of what the episode is. It showcases that Isogai is able to rally people, and even with smaller numbers, he was more than able to take down Gakashu in his cheating. We'll put it. He was able to easily defeat Gakashu in his cheating, and also it's a big learning goal for him because not only did he put his career as a student on the line, because he's not allowed to have a job, which is weird. I'm not entirely sure why that's a thing. But he was willing to put his career on the line as a student. He was willing to put his attempt at assassinating Koro Sensei on the line, and it wound up paying off. He won, and Gakashu wound up leaving with a tail between his legs. So yeah, overall, this episode was just to showcase how good of a leader Isogai can be, and that's what it does. It does that very effectively, and I do appreciate that. But in any case, that's gonna do it for my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well if you want to help support the show and help me make more high-budget stuff. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks and my way saying thanks, so be sure to check those out in the description below as well. Also, if you want to see more videos from me, then be sure to check out the end screen. The top video is recommended to you based on your previous watch history, and the bottom one is the most recent video. It may or may not be this video, depending on when this comes out and when you guys are watching it, but in any case, watch either video in the end screen. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and so next time I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!